Today, we are going on a journey, not to some distant land, but deep inside our own bodies. We're going to explore a hidden chapter of our family story, one that's written, not in books, but in our very own DNA. It's a story that connects many of us to our ancient and often misunderstood relatives, the Neanderthals. So let's just cut right to the chase. I have a question for you. Are you part Neanderthal? Now, I know that sounds like a line from a sci-fi movie, but believe it or not, thanks to some absolutely incredible leaps in genetics, it's a question we can actually answer. And the answer, for most people out there with ancestry from outside of Africa, is a pretty shocking yes. On average, you carry around 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA. Now, that might not sound like a huge number, but trust me, that small percentage is a direct, living link to an ancient world, and it has had a massive impact on who we are today. Because that 2%, well, it tells an incredible story. It's a story of human migration, of our ancestors pushing out into new lands and meeting other kinds of humans. It's a story of survival, of adaptation, and a shared history that was locked away in our genetic code for tens of thousands of years, just waiting for us to find the key. You know, for the longest time, science could only guess based on dusty bones and stone artifacts. Were Neanderthals our direct ancestors? Or were they a totally separate species that we just outcompeted and wiped out? The fossil record just left us with a ton more questions than answers. But then, everything changed. A revolution happened. A whole new field you could almost call genetic archaeology gave us the tools to finally go back in time and read the story directly from the source code of life itself. The key to all of this was ancient DNA analysis. Scientists developed these unbelievable techniques to pull out and actually read tiny fragmented pieces of genetic material from bones that were thousands upon thousands of years old. This technology was a complete game changer. It let us read the genomes of people who lived in the deep, deep past. So, how in the world does it work? Well, it's a bit like a genetic detective story. Scientists get DNA from both ancient human remains and from people living today. The big challenge is that ancient DNA is a mess. It's shattered into millions of tiny little pieces. And that's where really powerful software comes in, like a program called AdMixFrog. It can sift through all that genetic chaos, compare it to high-quality Neanderthal genomes we already have, and then pinpoint the exact stretches of our DNA that came from them. And this is what you get. I know, it looks a little complicated, but stick with me. What we're looking at are the chromosomes of a human who lived 45,000 years ago. And every single one of those bright red blocks you see is a segment of DNA that has been identified as being 100% Neanderthal. It's a genetic map, a literal picture of that ancient interbreeding. And the really cool part is, the longer those red blocks are, the more recent that interbreeding was. This discovery, of course, led to the next massive question. When did this all happen? Was it just a single brief encounter, or was it something more? Well, the answer turned out to be way more fascinating than anyone expected. By studying how these DNA segments get shorter and break up over generations, researchers have pieced together a surprisingly precise timeline. This process is called gene flow, basically the transfer of genes from one group to another. And the evidence points to a single, extended period of this gene flow that kicked off around 47,000 years ago. And when I say extended, I really, really mean it. It lasted for about 7,000 years. Let that sink in for a second. 7,000 years! That is a longer span of time than all of recorded human history from the invention of writing until this very moment. Our ancestors and Neanderthals lived side by side and interbred for a truly vast amount of time. And the scientific evidence for this is incredibly strong. As the researchers themselves put it, the vast majority of Neanderthal gene flow is attributable to a single, shared, extended period. This wasn't a fluke. It was a deep and sustained period of contact between our groups. So, if we all inherited our Neanderthal DNA from the same long event, does that mean we all have the exact same Neanderthal genes? Not at all. And this is where the story gets really personal for all of us. This illustrates a really cool concept, the genetic mosaic. Think of the complete Neanderthal genome as a giant jigsaw puzzle. Every one of us with Neanderthal ancestry has inherited a different handful of pieces. So you and I could both have 2% Neanderthal DNA, but we might carry completely different parts of their genome, different puzzle pieces.
In fact, and this is wild, when scientists take all those unique Neanderthal segments from everyone alive today and piece them all together, they've been able to reconstruct over 60% of the entire Neanderthal genome. We are collectively a living library of their genetic information. But the story doesn't just end with that gene flow. Once this Neanderthal DNA entered the modern human gene pool, another powerful force came into play. You can think of it as evolution's genetic editor. So the crucial thing to get is that not all of this inherited DNA was treated equally. As soon as it arrived in our gene pool, natural selection started sorting through it, deciding what was useful and what was a liability for modern humans spreading across the globe. Think of it like this. Some of those Neanderthal genes were like a fantastic toolkit, giving our ancestors ready-made solutions to new challenges. Natural selection kept those. But other genes, well, they caused problems. Maybe they just weren't compatible with our biology, and those were systematically weeded out over time. So what kinds of genes did we keep? Overwhelmingly, they were genes that gave our ancestors a real survival advantage. For instance, we kept genes related to skin pigmentation, which helped us adapt to different UV radiation levels in Europe and Asia. We kept genes related to metabolism to help process new foods. And critically, we kept genes related to immunity, which helped our ancestors fight off local pathogens they had never seen before. And here's a perfect example of that process in action. This chart is looking at a gene called BNC2, which is involved in skin color. The top orange graph shows the frequency of Neanderthal DNA in this gene in ancient people, and the bottom teal graph shows it in people today. As you can see, those peaks are in roughly the same place, and the frequency is still high. That's a huge sign that this Neanderthal gene was immediately helpful and has been kept in our population for tens of thousands of years. But then, there are the genes we lost. Scientists have found these huge deserts in our genome that are completely empty of any Neanderthal DNA. And this purging happened really fast. The X chromosome in particular has almost no Neanderthal ancestry, which strongly suggests that some of these genes we got rid of might have negatively affected fertility in human Neanderthal hybrids. So what does this all mean when you put it together? It means that the 7,000-year encounter between our ancestors and Neanderthals, it wasn't just a quirky footnote in human history. It was a massive, fundamental event that continues to shape our biology today. It handed us new genetic tools, it posed new biological challenges, and it left a permanent living legacy inside so many of us who carry this ancient inheritance. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If we could uncover this entire epic saga in just 2% of our genome, what other ancient stories are still waiting to be read, hidden deep within our DNA?